Is this the right microphone? Oh, Hare Krishna. Can you hear me? Oh. So yes, we're going to do a short seminar, which is titled Matchless Gifts. And it's referring to the gifts given to us, particularly by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The holy names, and particularly the holy names. And of course his pastimes, they're just so to inspire us and help us in our Krishna consciousness. Although repeat after me, please. Jai Nityananda. Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Nityananda. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Okay. Sri Nityananda Prabhu Ki. Yes, so we'll focus on a few of Lord Chaitanya. In some cases, we'll see if there's some lessons we can learn to in Krishna consciousness. First, that when Lord Chaitanya came, different ways, a few different ways of being a mission, but just in terms of just some things that were happening. When Lord Chaitanya appeared, was a lunar eclipse, particularly in there. You know, these eclipses, if you've seen a few, it's only certain areas where you see the eclipse. In parts to the north, south, you see it. But right there in Bengal, it was just a full lunar eclipse. And the practice was in those days, the people would go to some sacred place, and during the whole period of the eclipse itself, the actual, like when it's in darkness, then people would all go into some water, like the Ganges or the Yamuna or sacred lake like Radha, and so on and so forth. So they'd go in for the whole period, and those eclipses can last a while, at least a few hours. And they just stay there, and they would just chant and chant. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. How enthusiastic the men are. There's just a couple who had your hands up. The rest of you were sort of wondering when's prasadam. So, okay. So that's one. And Srila Prabhupada notes that some people from Muslim backgrounds who, you know, it depends, but in that part of the world, I mean, in other parts of the world, they're Muslim people and they just appreciate Krishna consciousness so much, but not so much in India. They don't appreciate it. But even so, they were caught up. To see me? No. Escape. Right. So that was going on right at the time that Lord Chaitanya appeared. And it was just a cosmic happening in one sense. But prelude, you could say, the scene, Chaitanya's appearance and his mission, but just those particular circumstances. And yes, and the eclipse is an interesting description that Chaitanya, he is golden, his skin, His color is golden, and not just golden. Like if you've got a Krugerrand, normally you look at a Krugerrand, it's kind of dull. You know, it's not very impressive looking. But if you see molten gold, if you've ever seen liquid molten gold, it's super and it's liquid and it's just and effulgence which up the area. That's the color of Lord Chaitanya, because Krishna Chaitanya Rashna Nah. Lord Chaitanya is none other than the combined form of Srimati Radharani and Lord Krishna. And in terms of the golden color, that's honey. In terms of the merciful nature, particularly Radharani, not that Krishna's, but Radharani is particularly just glowing with mercy. So anyway, the moon is silver colored. And what was it? It was a couple of days ago was the full moon. Was it Wednesday? And yeah, you could see big silver moon. Now, of course, it's Saturday. It's not full, but you can still see pretty substantial manifestation of the moon, and it's silver like a bright. But Lord Chaitanya is bright gold. And you know what? I knew that I had to do this program today. So you may not believe this, but I will tell you. I checked the price of silver and of gold. Seriously. And silver in rands is 20, maybe 29, I think, rands per ounce. 29. Gold is something like 2,900. So what does that mean? It's 100 times more valuable. So that little description says that what the eclipse was all about was that silver moon. It was full moon, Purnima. It was the Purnima, full moon. But still, the silver moon at 1/100th of the value of the Gaurachandra, the golden moon of Lord Chaitanya, silver moon felt embarrassed. But I'm going to look cheap when the golden moon of Lord Chaitanya rises. Silver moon hid his face in embarrassment. Anyway, like this Lord Chaitanya, in a way which you could say heralded his mission. Then Lord Chaitanya, so many stories, could just do a whole thing for hours and days. But as a little time went on, and Lord Chaitanya, little Chaitanya, he is, he can walk. He's kind of like that little girl who's wandering around, that sort of age. And Lord Chaitanya, well, children. Many of you have children. We've all experienced children. And one of the main prescribed duties of a child, cry, isn't it? If you're a child, you got to cry. Otherwise, you're not up to scratch. One day, Chaitanya, little Lord Chaitanya, sang. All the ladies, all the ladies, they would gather there at the house of Jagannath Mishra and Mother Sachi, and they'd all just have pastimes, exchanges, interactions with Nimai. He was known particularly Nimai at that time, having been born under a neem tree. Play little games with Nimai and joke with him and make him laugh and so on and so forth. But then this one day he started crying. And ladies, well, you know ladies. Ladies have their ways for making children who are crying stop crying. Am I right? Anyway, it seems like that. You know, little things like throw them up. Throw them up. Laugh. Make them laugh. Or tell them, it's a moo cow, go mata. And little child like, suddenly, it's changed the subject. They forget about crying. But this day, little Nimai, he wouldn't stop. He was crying and crying and crying, and they tried every trick in Mataji's book for dealing with children. But little Nimai was just crying more and then and more until he was just out of control. And they didn't, and they thought it's some serious problem. Maybe, you know what they thought? Maybe someone put najar on him. That's magic if you don't understand. So, yeah, what on earth is going on? And one of the ladies, she got so, it was just too much. And she said, oh, and Nimai stopped crying. And she thought, wow, what? That's interesting. But then he started crying again and again and just crying and crying, crying. And so this lady thought, well, let's try again. Let's see. Maybe we've discovered something. We're onto something here. Nimai's crying. And she said to him, Hare Krishna. What did she say? Yeah, like that. That's good. That's good. And sure enough, Nimai's crying. And she understood, yes. It's a secret here. But then he started crying. And then a minute or two or something later, Hare Krishna. What? And he stopped crying again. And the ladies understood, this is it. He is deliberately doing this. He's just a little child, like the little girl who was around 10 minutes ago. He's just a little child. You don't expect a little child like that to have some strategy worked out for getting people to do things. But it seemed like that. So it became the thing to do. He would cry. They would say, what would they say? Hallelujah! And he'd stop crying. And he'd cry again. Like this, just back and forth. And it was the high point at time. same idea and principle that Lord Chaitanya is demonstrating. What's his mission? His mission is to get everyone to chant the holy names. And when we say chant the holy names, particularly the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So like that, Chaitanya, even as a small child, just a little toddler type of child, he had got his movement going. It was becoming a major thing in the community. So, but then what happened? An interesting thing happened a bit later, means when Lord Chaitanya was going to school, a few years later, and Chaitanya, Nimai as a school-age old, whatever, 7, 8, 9, 10, that sort of age. But Nimai apparently changed. Yeah. When he was Nimai, Chaitanya, little Lord Chaitanya, he became, well, he showed himself to be extremely intelligent, just like impossible intelligent, more or less. He would hear something one time and he'd have it. That was it. He'd got it. And you could ask days later, what was that point? Something or other. And he'd have it. Just like that. So he actually showed himself very quickly to literally be a genius. It was really incredible. His intellectual skills, was particularly studying Sanskrit. And I don't know if anyone here has studied Sanskrit. I've studied just a little, and it is extremely complicated. The grammar, whoa, Krishna. There, Srila Jiva Goswami, he wrote two grammar books. Harinam Amrita Vyakyan means a grammar book based on Harinam, the holy names, Amrita, the nectar of the holy names. I mean, we go into it, but there are two versions. One is the short version, is the long version. You learn Sanskrit according to Srila Jiva Goswami. All the grammatical rules are presented in verses. Each rule has a verse. And in order to learn it, to memorize verses. And in the small version, for the small Sanskrit scholars, the number of rules means the number of verses it's around 2,700. And Bhagavad Gita, just, to learn Bhagavad Gita, it's a mere 700. It's nothing. Child's play. How many of us have Bhagavad Gita? Not me. But you got to learn 2,700 for the short abbreviated version. The big version is a little more than 7,000 verses, and you got to memorize them. Haribol, go for it. Then you learn grammar. Sanskrit grammar. Good for you. So Lord Chaitanya studying Sanskrit, But he had this divine brain, supremely divine. So he learnt all the rules, having heard each one once. Yeah. And so he learnt all several thousand of them, and you could ask him, okay, what's rule number 4,392? Bang, and he'd just give it to you. No kidding. Of course, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What respect. But still, for the people and the fellow students, it was just totally mind-boggling. This person is so incredibly intelligent. But that was there. But then Lord Chaitanya, he deliberately hid his divine nature, meaning divine spiritual nature, that he's the Supreme Lord, or even actually, mainly, that he was he did not display usual symptoms of being a devotee, like taking part in kirtan, in Krishna Katha, all these types of things. That was going on, sort of exit stage left and pick up. And so the other students, like Sri Gadadhar Pandit, from the Panchatattva, Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Vas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinoda, the very same Gadadhar was in the same class. There was another, and he was from a devotee family. Just in terms of the social situation, he was a devotee, like very active devotee, preaching to the other school children, taking part in the programs enthusiastically. Yeah, just like your typical devotee child. Mukunda Dutt, we'll talk about him a bit. Great kirtan singer. He really became an incredibly great kirtan singer because he is a kirtan singer from Goloka Vrindavan, the kingdom of God, who descended to accompany Lord Chaitanya with kirtan. So he could sing. He could sing. Who's our best singer in ISKCON Pheonix? Is it Rupanuga Prabhu? Or who is it? Silence. Oh, there's Rupanuga Prabhu. What would you say? Anyway, let's say it's Rupanuga Prabhu, because he's good. He's very good, actually. So Mukunda Dutt, when he would sing, rocks would. Did it melt when Rupa Prabhu led kirtan? Did you see that? You saw it? Krishna Prabhu saw it. Wow. Hare Krishna. Anyway, it was just out of this world, literally, kirtan. So he was in the same class. So these two others, because they're basically, many at least, devotee families, and they're just really wonderful devotees. pundit who's just the super genius who gets 100% in every test, 108%. Did any of you ever get 108%? But yeah, he was just in another dimension altogether intellectual. And so from a devotee family. Jagannath Mishra, well-known devotees from the deep devotee community. But Nima Chaitanya was hiding that. He wasn't showing it. So he was conducting himself practically ever for some of those years at least, but rather he was conducting himself, or he's acting actually, just like a scholar who knows he's a big scholar. You know what I mean? Kind of proud. Let us not make mistakes, thinking the wrong way about Lord Chaitanya, but like that. Or Mukunda, from time to time they'd say to him, "Hey, why don't you come and join us in nice kirtan?" Rupa Nuga Prabhu from Pheonix says to lead kirtan. It's going to be great. Come. And Nimai would say, "Oh, you're not going to catch me with you guys jumping up and down and waving my arms about. I'm not going to do like that. I don't do stuff like that. I study Sanskrit." This is what he was like. And kind of, a bit aggressive with them. He didn't want to be involved. But they're really great devotees. After all, Gita is Srimati Radharani herself. So about being a devotee. So they persevered. They kept on inviting him and cajoling him and telling him, "Yeah, you'll make a great devotee. Study Bhagavad Gita. You'll convert everybody." But Lord Chaitanya was still this mood like, "Please don't bother me," basically. But they kept on, very persistent. And eventually, Mukunda was with Chaitanya one afternoon. And there was some devotee event happening just now. Advaita Acharya was the leader of the devotees there. So he invited Nimai enthusiastically. "It'll be a great program, you'll love it." And Nimai, instead of the usual, "Listen, you go, I have other things to do." Instead of that, Nimai said, listen, all right. What? After days, just give me you will see on my body the signs of a Vaishnav. And Mukunda's like, what? What's he saying? Is he serious? And then Nimai, Lord Chaitanya said, "Yes, you just wait and see. A few days, I'll become such a devotee, such a Vaishnav, Brahma and Lord, to offer me their obeisances." What? Who is this fellow? He's just, I can't believe it. And he said, "Yes, just listen, Mukunda. Just listen and wait and see. I'll I will become the best of all the Vaishnavas. You will never have met a devotee like me. Yeah. Those who run away from me now, because he used to try and he'd stop them on the street, start a debate or something related, and completely defeat it was. Okay, listen, you made a few. I will take the position you took in the debate. You take the position I took, and I defeated you completely. Debate, let's swap positions. Chaitanya would totally defeat which he had made just minutes before. And so when they saw him coming, all these students and scholars, they would often just like, oh, look, I've got important business to do, and just go off the other way. And Lord Chaitanya, sometimes he would ask whoever was with him, why student run away? Because they were afraid of meeting Lord Chaitanya. He'd defeat them, and then he'd rub it in. He would really I don't know, do you use the term razz? Anyway, in English schools, when they make fun of another, they razz him. So he would do that. He'd just mock them. So he said, those who now run from me, they will be singing my glories shortly. If he went and didn't know what to do, didn't know what to think. So yes, so like I said, there's so many things. Can someone tell me what's the time? Is it actually 5 o'clock? Eight o'clock tonight. Okay. Yeah. 1780. Okay, we'll go on for a while. A little while. The night is young. So next thing I wanted to, and it happened some years ago. Now this is all I'm saying. It's all about Lord Chaitanya at school. 9, 10, maybe 11, 12, that sort of age. But now we're talking about he is like late teens, because his father passed away when he was about 16 or something like that. So he went to Gaya, because Jagannath Mishra had, and is the only son, what's the oldest son, so he had to go, at least the tradition was, and he followed it, to go to Gaya in Bihar, in Bengal. So it's some distance actually to Gaya. So he went there to do the last rites. And while he was there, he met Ishvarapuri, a great devotee. Actually, he had already met Ishvarapuri because Ishvarapuri had some months before, maybe 6 months, or when Jagannath was still living, but just before he passed away, Ishvarapuri had visited Navadvip, and he had stayed with Jagannath Mishra and Mother Sachi and Nimai, Chaitanya, in their house for some weeks. And so Lord Chaitanya, as young fellow, He's definitely teenage. He would have discussions with Ishvarapuri about philosophy and different things, and even Sanskrit grammar. And I won't go into it. Ishvarapuri defeated in an argument on Sanskrit grammar. And Ishvarapuri, great devotee, was just full of nectar, overflowing with guitar and so on. And Lord Chaitanya, even though he still not manifested himself as a devotee, not to speak of as the Supreme Lord, still he was really so just enwrapped, listening to Ishvarapuri and his recitations and explanations. And so during those weeks, the idea entered Lord Chaitanya's mind: if I ever accept someone as my spiritual master, I think it should be Puri. But he didn't, right? But in his mind, in his heart, he basically made that decision. But then Ishvarapuri left. And then Jagannath and Lord Chaitanya went to Gaya to do the last rite. And Ishvarapuri was there. And when Chaitanya saw Ishvarapuri, he said, oh, yes, this is that great, great devotee. So he asked him, will you please accept me as a disciple? And Ishvarapuri did that. So after the last rites were done, Ishvarapuri did an initiation ceremony for Lord Chaitanya. Yes. And so he initiated him. And at the end, Lord Chaitanya asked, so okay, now I'm initiated, what should I do now? And Lord Chaitanya said, should I get involved in philosophical debate, spiritual philosophical debates, which was a very common, it's a practice of Mayavadis or the impersonalists, those who think it's all one and we're all God and everything is God. So it's really their practice, but the impersonalists at that time in India, including in the Navadvip area, they were the predominant group of spiritual people. The Vaishnavas were there. There were definitely Vaishnavas and great Vaishnavas, but they were not so many, not as prominent or as well accepted by the people in general. Because in those days, the people in general were so into their religion. So anyway, so Lord Chaitanya, Ishvarapuri, he thought, but acting like an ordinary person who's living in a spiritual social environment where the impersonalists are really in the majority, should I get involved in the difficult discussions? It's described actually in Chaitanya Gita and Chaitanya Bhagavat. But Ishvarapuri answered him, no, don't do that. What you should do is, and he spoke famous verse, Hari Nam, Eva Kevalam, O Nasjeva, Nasjeva, Gat-yata. I'm sure you all know that verse. You should just chant the holy names. Chant the holy names, chant the holy names. In this Kali Yuga, there's no other way, no other way, no other way. Tia anyata, to achieve the goal of life. Yeah. So, said, oh, really? Okay, that's what I'll do. Off he went, chanting. And he was staying in some different place, a little away from Ishvarapuri. So now Lord Chaitanya, he's got this instruction, chant the holy names. And he was chanting the holy names, and chanting the holy names, and chanting the holy names. But the thing is, when Chaitanya chants the holy names, naturally, it is different from when we chant the holy names. I mean, if we chant sincerely, it's very good. But Lord Chaitanya is way beyond that. He heard offenses with total absorption, constantly. So therefore, basically, practically, immediately, he became overwhelmed. All the major ecstatic symptoms, emotional symptoms like is not just, I mean, we have all cried in our lives. Have you cried? You did. When was the last time? Oh, just recently. Okay. So, we have all cried. All cried many times. I mean, particularly when we're younger, but one way or the other, we've all cried. Now, when Lord Chaitanya cried, it was different. Because, not just Lord Chaitanya, particularly Lord Chaitanya, but not just Lord Chaitanya, but someone who is on the level of bhava or prema, means eternal spiritual potency has descended from the kingdom of God into the heart of that devotee who's now on the level of at least bhava, preliminary stage of love of God. So that, that eternal potency immensely powerful. And when it makes contact with the element water in our bodies, because our bodies are, 70% water, something like that. Any chemistry people here? But something like that, isn't it? That's what we hear. Water. In other words, if your body is 50 kilos, means you're small, but there's 35 kilos, 5 liters of water in your body. So when that water feels the impact of the internal potency, the element water in your body gets so stimulated, the body cannot contain it. So it just starts pouring out of all the different places it can pour out, including particularly the eyes. When Lord Chaitanya would do the yatra, sometimes he'd spin and the water would be coming out of his eyes like from a syringe, but not really just a syringe, more like from a hose. And the devotees surrounding him would become saturated, completely saturated. Tears coming from his eyes. That's the phenomenon. That's the phenomenon. And when the internal potency affects the element air in the body, then the air becomes agitated. And so the body starts trembling, shaking uncontrollably. So Lord Chaitanya had the same experience, just practically immediately after starting to chant. He became so overwhelmed that he couldn't chant. He would just, Hare, and the whole system would just, he'd lose control physically. So the next day, acting like an ordinary person, Lord Chaitanya went back to Ishwarapuri and asked him, Maharaj, what sort of mantra have you given me? What sort of? Because whenever I chant it, I become over. Sometimes I just find the ground. I don't know how I get there. It just, body becomes, well, overwhelmed, overcome. What sort of mantra have you given me? Ishwarapuri did not answer the question. He just laughed, because he understood who is Lord Chaitanya and what is going on. Ishwarapuri just said, congratulations, my dear child. You have perfected. And that was that. Lord Chaitanya went to Navadvip, a God-intoxicated person, just totally, practically lost in a world of Krishna consciousness. So devotees, despite Krishna's time, it says Krishna's time is 5:15. Time is better. Yeah, okay. So I should finish. Sadham serve out now, and then a play. That's at 6:30. Okay, devotees. Anyway, thank you for listening very patiently. We'll continue tomorrow, I think at the same time or thereabouts, with some more things about Lord Chaitanya and the chanting of the holy names. Oh, 4 o'clock. Okay. Jai. Fermalinga. Kalmalinga. Kalmalinga. See you tomorrow. Shri Prabhu Ke. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ke. Srila Prabhupada Ke. Go Premanande. Hari Bol.